I never believed in ghost stories. Not the ones about haunted houses, not the ones about cursed roads, and definitely not the stories about the last bus home. Until I got on it. It happened 3 years ago. I was working the night shift at a warehouse on the edge of town. The job paid badly. The hours were worse. My shift ended at midnight, and by the time I clocked out, there was only one bus left that could get me home. Route 17. The last bus. Every night, it arrived at exactly 12:20 a.m. Every night, the same driver sat behind the wheel. A thin old man with pale skin and deep-set eyes. I never learned his name. Nobody seemed to know it. He never spoke, never smiled, never looked at anyone.
He simply drove. And every night, people got on. Most of them looked exhausted. Workers, students, people trying to get home after a long day. Nothing unusual. At least, that's what I thought. Until the night it happened. That night, I missed the bus. Or at least, I thought I had. I left work late and ran toward the stop.
As I approached, I saw Route 17 pulling away. I stopped running. There was no point. The next bus wouldn't come until morning. Then, something strange happened. The bus stopped, about 50 meters down the road. Its brake lights glowed red in the darkness. The doors opened, waiting for me.
I hesitated. Then I ran. The moment I stepped aboard, the doors shut behind me. The driver didn't acknowledge me, didn't even glance in my direction. I sat near the middle. The bus was unusually crowded, far more crowded than normal. Every seat was occupied, yet the atmosphere felt wrong. Nobody spoke. Nobody used their phones. Nobody looked around.
They simply stared ahead, motionless, silent. I remember thinking they looked like mannequins. The bus pulled away. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. I looked out the window. Something felt off. We should have reached the city center by then. Instead, unfamiliar streets rolled past. Abandoned buildings, dark storefronts, roads I had never seen before. I checked my phone. No signal. Not one bar. A knot formed in my stomach. I stood and walked toward the front. "Excuse me," I said. The driver didn't respond. I tried again. Nothing. Then I noticed something. The passengers. Every single one of them was watching me. Not moving. Not blinking. Just watching. I returned to my seat, trying to convince myself I was imagining things. My heart was hammering so hard, I could feel it in my throat. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was stressed. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. Then I heard someone whisper my name. Soft, barely audible, just behind my seat. I turned immediately. Nobody was there. The seats behind me were occupied by a middle-aged man and a woman wearing a dark coat. Neither of them appeared to have moved. Then something caught my eye. A scratched metal panel near the window. At first, I thought it was graffiti. Random marks carved into the paint. But when I leaned closer, I realized they were words. Names. Names scratched into the metal by different hands. Some old, some fresh. I scanned the list and froze, because near the bottom, carved into the metal as if it had always been there, was my name. The bus hit a pothole. I jerked backward. When I looked again, the name was gone. The panel was blank, untouched, as if nothing had ever been there. The bus continued through the darkness, and then it stopped. Not at a bus stop, not near a building, just a lonely stretch of road surrounded by fog. The doors opened. One passenger stood, an elderly woman. She walked toward the exit. As she passed beneath the overhead light, I noticed something horrifying. Her feet never touched the floor. She was floating, only slightly, barely noticeable, but floating. The doors closed behind her. The bus moved again. I stared out the rear window. The woman stood motionless in the fog, watching the bus disappear. My hands began shaking. I told myself there had to be an explanation. There had to be. Then the next passenger got off, and the next, and the next. Each stop was stranger than the last. A deserted playground, an empty bridge, a forest road. And every passenger shared something in common. Their faces seemed wrong, too pale, too still, too empty. Eventually, only 3 passengers remained. A man in a business suit, a young girl clutching a stuffed rabbit, and me. The bus entered a part of town I had never seen before. The streetlights disappeared. The buildings disappeared. Even the road markings vanished. Outside was nothing but darkness. Then the little girl stood. She walked into the aisle, stopped beside my seat, and whispered something. "You're not supposed to be here." My blood ran cold. Before I could answer, she stepped off the bus, vanishing into the darkness outside. The doors closed. Only 2 passengers remained. The man in the business suit and me. For the first time, the man looked directly at me. His expression wasn't angry or threatening. It was pity. The kind of look someone gives a person who doesn't understand they're already doomed. Then he spoke. The first words I had heard all night. "You got on the wrong bus." The bus stopped. The man exited, leaving me alone. Alone with the driver. I rushed forward. "What is this place?" The driver finally turned his head. His eyes were completely white. No pupils, no iris, just white. When he spoke, his voice sounded ancient, as if 100 people were speaking at once. The final route. The bus accelerated, faster and faster. The windows darkened. The road vanished. Outside was no longer a city, no longer a road, only endless blackness. I grabbed the emergency handle. Nothing happened. I pounded on the doors. They wouldn't open. The driver never looked away from the darkness ahead. Then I saw lights, thousands of them, floating in the distance. At first I thought they were buildings, but they weren't. They were people, standing together, silent, waiting. The bus was heading directly toward them. I screamed, pulled at the doors, kicked the windows. Then somehow the rear emergency exit opened. I didn't think. I jumped. The last thing I remember was hitting the pavement. Then darkness.
I woke in a hospital 2 days later. A truck driver had found me unconscious beside a highway, 30 kilometers from town. The doctors couldn't explain how I got there. Neither could the police. But that wasn't the strangest part. When I finally returned to work, I asked about Route 17. The manager looked confused. He told me Route 17 had been discontinued years ago, after a fatal accident. The last bus had crashed during a heavy fog. Every passenger died, including the driver, 23 years ago. I quit that job shortly afterward, moved to another city, started over, and for a while, I convinced myself it had all been a dream. Until last month. I was waiting at a traffic light after midnight, and across the street, I saw a bus. Its destination sign glowed through the darkness. Route 17, the last bus home. And standing inside, every passenger was staring directly at me.